The Red Sea, a vital artery of global trade, is now home to a formidable display of American naval power. The United States has deployed a second aircraft carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, to join the USS Harry S. Truman, already stationed in the region. This marks a significant escalation of the U.S. military presence and underscores the escalating tensions in this volatile part of the world. The Carl Vinson, a Nimitz-class supercarrier, brings with it an array of fighter jets, helicopters, and other advanced weaponry, bolstering the U.S. ability to project power and deter potential adversaries. The decision to deploy the Carl Vinson was made in response to a series of attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea, attributed to the Houthi rebels in Yemen. These attacks, often involving sophisticated weaponry, have raised concerns about the safety of maritime traffic through the region, threatening to disrupt global supply chains and energy flows. The presence of two carrier strike groups, each a self-contained fighting force, sends a clear message of American resolve to protect its interests and those of its allies. The Houthis, a Shia Muslim group aligned with Iran, have emerged as a potent force in the ongoing conflict in Yemen. Their ability to strike targets both on land and at sea poses a direct challenge to regional stability and international security. Their attacks on commercial shipping, often carried out with mines and explosive-laden boats, have added a dangerous new dimension to the conflict. These attacks are not merely acts of piracy or terrorism, they represent a calculated strategy to exert pressure on the international community. By disrupting maritime traffic, the Houthis aim to cripple the Yemeni economy, exacerbate the humanitarian crisis, and force concessions from their adversaries. The attacks have already had a chilling effect on shipping, with insurance premiums soaring and some companies diverting their vessels away from the Red Sea. The arrival of the Carl Vinson adds another layer of firepower to an already substantial U.S. military presence in the region. The U.S. has been conducting airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen, targeting their military infrastructure and leadership. The carrier strike groups, with their complement of FA-18 Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers and other aircraft, provide a potent platform for both offensive and defensive operations. The presence of these carriers is not just about military strength, it's also about sending a message of deterrence. The U.S. is signaling to the Houthis and their Iranian backers that it is prepared to use force to protect its interests and those of its allies in the region. The carriers also provide a degree of reassurance to regional partners, who have grown increasingly concerned about the growing boldness and capabilities of the Houthis. The deployment of a second carrier strike group comes as no surprise to those familiar with the foreign policy pronouncements of former President Donald Trump, who has remained a vocal commentator on international affairs. Trump, known for his hawkish stance towards Iran and his support for Saudi Arabia, has repeatedly criticized the Biden administration's handling of the Middle East, urging a more muscular approach. While no longer in office, Trump's views continue to resonate with a segment of the American public and within the Republican Party. His calls for a more assertive foreign policy, particularly in the Middle East, have found a receptive audience among those who believe that the U.S. has ceded ground to its rivals. The deployment of the Carl Vinson, while initiated by the Biden administration, could be seen as a tacit acknowledgement of the political pressures exerted by Trump and his supporters. Section 5. The Iranian Nexus. While the Houthis maintain that they are an independent movement, their ties to Iran are undeniable. Iran has provided the Houthis with weapons, training, and financial support, enabling them to sustain their insurgency and threaten regional stability. The United States has accused Iran of supplying the Houthis with the missiles and drones used in attacks on Saudi Arabia and commercial shipping. The U.S. deployment of a second carrier strike group is as much about Iran as it is about the Houthis. By bolstering its military presence in the Red Sea, the U.S. aims to deter Iran from further escalating its support for the Houthis, and to limit its influence in the region. The deployment also serves as a reminder of American military capabilities, a message directed not only at Tehran but also at other potential adversaries. Section 6. A Navy stretched thin. The deployment of two carrier strike groups to the Red Sea, while a powerful demonstration of American naval might, also highlights the strain on U.S. military resources. The U.S. Navy has been grappling with aging ships, maintenance backlogs, and a shrinking fleet size, limiting its ability to respond to crises around the world. The extended deployment of the Truman, and the addition of the Carl Vinson, will further exacerbate these challenges. The carriers will require extensive logistical support, from refueling and resupply to maintenance and repairs. This will put a strain on U.S. naval shipyards and support vessels, potentially delaying other deployments and operations. Section 7. A pivot back to the Middle East. The Biden administration came into office promising to shift U.S. foreign policy focus away from the Middle East and towards the Indo-Pacific region, seen as the primary theater of strategic competition with China. However, the escalating tensions in the Red Sea and the broader Middle East are forcing the administration to divert resources and attention back to a region it had hoped to de-emphasize. The deployment of a second carrier strike group underscores the enduring importance of the Middle East to U.S. national interests. The region remains a vital source of energy, a hub of global trade, and a hotbed of terrorism and instability. The U.S. cannot afford to ignore the Middle East even as it seeks to prioritize its rivalry with China. Section 8. The uncertain path ahead. The deployment of the Carl Vinson may deter further Houthi attacks in the short term, but it is unlikely to resolve the underlying conflict in Yemen. The war in Yemen has become a complex proxy war, fueled by regional rivalries and international indifference. The U.S., while not directly involved in the conflict, has provided logistical and intelligence support to the Saudi-led coalition fighting the Houthis. This support, while limited, has drawn criticism from human rights groups and some members of Congress who accuse the U.S. of complicity in war crimes. Section 9. Echoes of past conflicts. The deployment of two carrier strike groups to the Red Sea evokes memories of past U.S. military interventions in the Middle East, from the Gulf War to the Iraq War. These interventions, while initially successful in achieving their military objectives, often had unintended consequences, destabilizing the region and leading to protracted conflicts. The U.S. must tread carefully in the Middle East, mindful of the lessons of history. Military force, while sometimes necessary, should be used sparingly and as a last resort. The focus should be on diplomacy, de-escalation, and addressing the root causes of the conflict in Yemen.